Women in Wellness Tribe. We are here with myself, Dr. Sonia, Dr. Mindy, and Dr. Caitlin. And I think we have a pretty important topic to talk about. It's Alzheimer's and dementia. And I don't know about you guys, but I've noticed in my practice, some women will come in. They think that they're going to be getting it too if their parents are suffering or dealing with some sort of neurodegenerative disease. And B, they're usually the ones taking care of their
Mhm.
families.
Yep.
So I think a few things that we want to talk about today. What is Alzheimer's? What's the difference between that and dementia, and how dementia is a part of Alzheimer's, and how it affects the family unit, and especially the women in the
Mhm.
family unit, and just some tips and things that you can do to look out for early signs, and also what to do to prevent. And I'm
Mhm.
sure all of you have heard that term that, dementia is really just diabetes of the brain. So that's something that we can go into, and brain health and how we can support our brains so that we're not ending up and we're not victim to these things that are, the generation before may have been dealing with. So I think that's a good conversation to start.
Yeah, about a year or two ago, I was really surprised when I started going through a list of symptoms with people. Like, tell me what your energy's like. Tell me what your brain fog, what your memory. Like, I was shocked that 40 and 50-year-old women were telling me, like, oh, my memory's horrible. I don't remember, like, I would have, I still to this day have some patients that say, I don't remember whole parts of my childhood, like memories are completely gone. I don't remember names. I go into rooms. I don't know why I got in there, what I'm doing. I mean, I hear that from 40 and 50-year-old women.
Yeah.
I
It's,
actually hear it in 20-year-olds saying that they
Yeah.
have brain fog
mhm.
and they're starting to notice the cognitive decline, but they think because they're in their 20s, it's not that bad yet. I'm not 40 yet, so it's okay. And it's not okay at any age.
Yeah, it's almost become a joke,
No,
right?
it's
Like,
totally, yep.
yeah, I think it's almost become kind of a joke. Like, oh, I put my keys somewhere, I don't remember where they are. Oh, that's just me all the time.
Senior moment.
Yeah, exactly. Just getting older. It's one of those
Yep.
things that we've talked about before, but it's not just getting older. That's one of the initial signs. I mean, that sign when that happens, I feel like there's already been some damage, some
Hmm.
toxicity, something going
Mhm.
on. But those
Mhm.
are things to pay attention to.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's start by doing this. Let's talk about like what the brain needs. Like, what does brain health look like? What does the diet look like? What does it look like? Like, what kind of toxins do people need to think about? How does the gut play a part? Because I think if people understand the basic foundation of what the brain needs to be healthy, then it becomes really easy to see where Alzheimer's and dementia is just the brain that got off path from that foundation.
Hmm.
So, I know, Dr. Caitlin, do you want to start with that?
Sure. Yeah. So which one are we going to start with? Gut?
Let's start with diet. Start with diet because Dr. Sonia sort of alluded to it already.
Hmm.
Yeah, so diet is super, 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 super important. And our brain needs fats, good, healthy fats. And so the unfortunate part is most women think that fats are going to make them fat. And, the fat that you wear is not the fat that you eat. Actually, I read that from Dr. Don Clum's post not too long
Oh,
ago. And I love that saying because it's so true. If you're eating good, healthy, quality fats like avocados and nuts and coconut oils, and you have good quality meats, those fats are actually going to feed your brain. Not to mention
Yep.
getting the good probiotics. Oh my goodness. The fermented foods. These are all things that we need in order for good, healthy brain function. And I don't know about you guys, but when I get grains or too much grains of any sort, and I'm not talking gluten because I don't touch gluten, but if I get too much grains, I start to get brain fog. And um, it's just my inability to properly break it down. And so it just builds in my system. And my outward effect is that fogginess, that where did I put my keys? Oh my God, did I send this email? Oh my God, did I tell this person this? Or, you know, being able to say the word probiotic without
yeah.
becoming tongue tied.
I think that's a good segue into talking about how the gut is related to the brain, right? So we talk a lot about leaky gut. I think that's become kind of common language around gut health, and I think people don't understand that the same can happen to the brain, and we can have leaky brains. So just like we
Mm-hmm.
have a barrier in the gut, there's a blood-brain barrier, and I think in the past we've been taught that the brain barrier is very tight and nothing can get through. There's only certain drugs or certain things that can get through, but now we have an understanding that there's certain toxins like glyphosate that's
Mm-hmm.
sprayed on grains and wheat and all that. So that is what's driving that extra toxicity. And I know we've talked about this on some of our other podcasts, but it's such an important point that
Mm-hmm.
I think people miss.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the gut brain connection, people are just waking up to that. I mean, they're really, I'm blown away how many people are just hearing it for the first time, but they don't know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and I think what's important for people to understand is that if your gut has damage, it allows toxins to enter the bloodstream and go up to the brain.
Yep.
So to go back to your point, Dr. Caitlin, like, for starters, make sure that brain has being fed good fat. Over 60% of the brain is fat. Make sure it has good fat in there so it's able to function right. Then let's go and make sure your gut is healthy so that you're not like auto intoxicating yourself, and you're not out like we have a bunch of fires going on right now, breathing in all the fumes in the air, and then all the crappy food people eat, and then next thing you know, your brain is getting a barrage of toxins.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that understanding good general gut health, like probiotics, fermented foods, polyphenol foods. I don't. Do you guys both take Restore? I'm still a huge fan of Restore.
I
No.
do.
I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
I need to, but
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, it was a kind of a joke at one of my family's events. One of my staff members is also a relative, and she had a big bottle of Restore ready for Nick and I because we knew what was happening. So
Yeah.
yeah, we carry it around with us. Not this weekend, but we normally do.
Yeah, there's other
Yeah.
gut health that we make sure to do. Like, I should post a picture of this amazing coconut yogurt that I found.
Coco Yo.
Yeah, Coco Yo. It's a probiotic coconut yogurt with, it's raw. Everything is raw in there, and there's no stabilizers, no gums, no nothing. It was unreal. It was really cool too. It was kind of like a kombucha-y
Yeah,
coconut
a little zing
yogurt.
at the end.
It was cool.
Yeah.
I think also just talking about the fats, we want to kind of talk about the good fats, which Dr. Caitlin did. And also, I think there's been a big kick around omega-3. So
Yes.
as soon as omega-3 became popular for inflammation, we started dosing really high on omega-3. But now we have that understanding that our brain is actually more reliant on omega-6. It's like the good omega-6.
Mhm.
So it's really important to make sure we're getting those oils in too and the right ratios.
Do you want to talk about the good omega-6s versus?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let's give some. Yeah.
Well, I mean, one brand, if we want to talk about brands, is Pure Form.
I take that
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're supposed to. You've been instructed to take it, Dr. Caitlin.
I have been. I've been. The joke is that I'm terrible at taking supplements, but I'm really good when I put myself on a program because of what I see happening in my labs. I am diligent about taking my supplements because I have a goal in mind. And so I have been taking it religiously since the middle of April. So I've been really good about that. Yeah.
What do you notice? Anything?
Well, I noticed that I need to work more on my gut now.
Oh, really?
I do. Yep. I have some gut issues now that are coming up where with balancing out my hormones now, I'm starting to get some of the breakouts on my chin, which is hormonal, which is a good thing because since I'm balancing hormones, I'm going to have some detoxification stuff happening. And so I just need to support more of my detox pathways. So I've been supporting the liver and the lymph. Now I need to go to the gut now. So, but I've noticed better sleep. My hair is growing super fast. My nails are growing super fast. Yeah, those are the couple things that I've noticed. And actually my cycles have been, my cycles have always been really consistent, but the pain and everything and the flow has been awesome. And I'm not just going to relate it to the pure form because I've been doing some other things, but I think that's playing a huge role in that.
Yeah,
For me,
that's awesome.
brain fog was big for me. When I started taking it regularly. That
Hmm.
included Moors and B12, and I found that combination for me, like really all of a sudden this light went on. I was like, wait, I'm remembering things again. I know,
That's awesome.
yeah. So I noticed that for myself.
So, and just to keep everybody up to speed on that, is just having that right balance of omega-3 to omega-6. I know we've talked about that on other shows about how people overdo the omega-3 and they don't do enough omega-6. When I did Pure Form for a couple of months and I noticed my skin, that was the main thing that I noticed. So you guys are now making me want to go back on it.
Right, there you
When
go.
I get done, right, I'm going to go walk right over to my supplements and grab some Pure Form.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So, okay, so but then other good fats, avocados, coconut oil, grass-fed butters, those kind of things. I do a lot of walnuts. They have a lot of omega-6s in them. I vary my nuts. What?
Do you use walnut oil?
I haven't. I haven't. That would be a good one to do. That would be really good. Yeah, and if you think about it, like the generation that's getting Alzheimer's right now is the generation that grew up in the low fat movement.
Yep.
And it just seems so obvious to me that, and then they were put on, that's the generation that was put on statins, which totally dries your brain out of any fat. You know, you need cholesterol to keep your brain functioning right. And the statin generation has, when you take a statin, you completely shut down all production of cholesterol. So I think the fat piece is like, I love that you started with that because I think that is absolutely has to be checkbox number one. And then gut should be checkbox number two.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think to give people a little bit of awareness, the statistic for 2032, I believe, is 1 in 1 people will have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So
Yep.
that's a prediction that everyone is moving in that direction if we don't make a shift today.
And
Yeah.
that is not a diagnosis I want anybody to go through with
No.
a family member or themselves. Like I went through it with my babcha, and it was awful. It was absolutely terrible, and it wasn't just bad for her, it was bad for the whole family. So the family watching and going through it, and you know, trying to take care of them and do what's best for them, which, you know, hindsight, you know, it's always brighter, and
Yep.
it's hard.
Yeah, my family's going through it right now. My nani, my grandma, has dementia, and just watching my mom and her sisters deal with this change, it's like really you're grieving the loss of your parent already. Even though she's physically there, she's no longer mentally there. And I have to say, there's some hilarious moments.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, super sweet and super funny, hiding things, trying to run away. I mean, it can be scary too if they do end up leaving, but there's definitely some funny moments. But at the end of the day, you're watching somebody deteriorate right in front of you. And so it's an interesting thing. And just, you know, for women out there that are taking care of their elderly or their parents, we sometimes forget about ourselves. And I'm seeing that in my family. Like all three of them are getting sick in their own way. There is resentment. There's so many different emotions that come up because they're going through their own processes. So I think it's a conversation that needs to start. So we start talking about what's right for you so that you can, again, it's always about filling your bucket up first so that you can be there for supporting your family member.
Yeah, and anytime a parent is or a grandparent is ailing, it can be such incredible motivation for your own personal health.
Yeah.
I think so. There's like, you know, there can be such a blessing, like even in you filling up your own bucket, or you can also be learning how to make sure you don't end up like them.
Yeah.
You know, I've got both my parents. My dad's in his 80s and my mom's in her late 70s, and wow, are they modeling for me right now how I want to show up when I'm that age? Because some of the ways that they're showing up, I don't want to show up like, you know, and I go, okay, at 48, I better keep working on it now to make sure I don't end up down that road. So let's talk about this. So if let's kind of create a checklist for the brain, and then let's talk about, we have two camps of people. We have what if you have an ailing parent that already has Alzheimer's and dementia? Like, what do you do? I know you guys probably get this. I get this from patients all the time. Like, what do I do? Do I just start feeding them avocados? Like, how do I do that? And then you've got the people that are listening that are like, I don't ever want to end up like that. And those are two totally different strategies because of the age difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of how I see it, because I see a lot of patients that really struggle to get the 80-year-old dementia dad is not going to, stop having his milkshake from McDonald's. He doesn't understand why and how that relates.
Care home and they're not getting that support. Or
right.
Care homes are so hard.
Yeah, so there's many different layers, I think, to treating someone at that age, depending on where they're at. Mm-hmm. We actually have an elderly woman who has Alzheimer's who comes in, and we do neurofeedback with her. So we've mapped out her brain.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're kind of starting at that point and then sharing with the family. So it's not even just about the patient at that time, it's educating the family and creating change for everyone. And there has to be these key components or key family members that are there to fully take care of that person. So it's a commitment. So I think that's kind of the first thing to become aware of, like, okay, who's going to be the person that does the shopping or the cooking and caretaking in that time.
Yeah.
How is it going to be divvied amongst a couple people, and making sure everybody's on the same page in order for it to work if somebody already has full-blown Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of doctors out there now that are working with Alzheimer, patients and getting amazing results, but the family really has to be behind them 110% helping them do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in some ways it's no different than what we would do for prevention, right? There's it's toxicity, like what we've always talked about, is detoxifying and working on the gut, working on all of that. So there's similarities, but yet different.
So I would say, like, the four things would be like change your fats, add the good fats in, repair your gut. You mentioned this early on that Alzheimer's is diabetes of the brain. So you got to regulate your blood sugar, you got to lower your carbs, and then you got to detoxify. So those would kind of be my four basics. But now I'm 80 years old, and I'm caring for an 80-year-old. How do you approach those four things? That's a lot. I mean, I agree with everything you guys are saying, and my heart goes out to people who have parents that are already exhibiting signs or already have signs. Like, those are four big lifestyle changes to make on an 80-year-old. How would you take those four? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah, step by step, I would say work with the diet first, right? Just introduce the good stuff, introduce the fats, get rid of the grains, start there. And then from there, you go on to the next, work really educating them about the gut and what needs to happen. And of course, they're not going to remember when to take their supplements, right? So again, there has to be something inside of them that's going to remind them. And we can't put them on a supplement regime where they're taking 4 to 5 things 4 to 5 times a day. Mm-hmm. It has to be very simplified. So I think basics first, diet, and then starting to introduce the good fats, maybe giving them the pure form or whatnot, and then getting into some detoxification.
I would do TCD.
Yeah, we've done TCD on an Alzheimer's patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
what'd you see?
Well, I was going to say,
what kind of
simplified too, because it's like morning, dinner, and then bedtime. So it's not 5 times a day, and they're already prepackaged.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot easier for family members to even remember what to do, when to do it.
Right. Yeah.
It was my husband's patient, and from what he says, he noticed energy shift and mood. Mood was big because there's a lot of agitation that can show up. When, especially when they're in that in-between, like they haven't hit full-blown dementia yet, and they're kind of in between where they're here and there, and they notice that. So there's a lot of irritation around that, and so just feedback from her daughter and her daughter's partner was that there was change in that.
Yeah, and I think that the grains is a really important one. I think that would be it is tough, but I will tell you, again, both my parents are lucid. They're not exhibiting signs of Alzheimer's or dementia, but their personalities have changed a bit over the years from toxins and my mom does the gluten-free junk food is what I would call it. Like she's gluten-free, but she does a lot of gluten-free junk food. So recently I got her off all grains. She's 78 years old. I got her off all grains. And it was like I could see the moment she walked in my door, there were like lights on in her eyes. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's my mom. Like, I know that woman. And it was so interesting because she would tell you prior to me getting her off grains, she would tell you, oh, I eat really healthy. I'm gluten-free. But she was having a gluten-free muffin at breakfast. She was having gluten-free bread with a sandwich. She was doing sweet potatoes and potatoes, like a lot of carby, gluten-free stuff. But the minute we took her off of that, it was like the lights turned on in her mind, in her brain. She dropped weight, her pain went away. Like, it was so weird to me how that one thing had such an impact.
Right. But think about it though, all of those things that you just mentioned drive up insulin, which drives up inflammation, which insulin goes up because of blood sugar. And if blood sugar is, going to cause dementia, Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's is type 3. We've already said it. It's, diabetes of the brain. You got to get the sugars down. And it's not, doing the diabetic candies or, the
not sugar-free
or any of that crap. That's worse. You really got to decrease your sugar content, and what foods drive up blood sugar. And so it's even fruit. Like, I have people that come in that the sheer amount of fruit they eat, I'm like, oh my God, your blood sugars are so stinking high. And you're eating good food, like you're eating organic fruit, but your body's still converting it into massive amounts of sugar, which then your body has to figure out what to do with it, and it's affecting your brain. And so not only taking out the grains, which I think everybody needs to, and you're 100% right, the gluten-free junk food.
Yeah.
I tell people I'm grain-free. I don't even say gluten-free anymore. I'm pretty much grain-free. On occasion, I may do the gluten-free bun. That's like
that's a feast day.
That's actually, that is my feast day.
Yeah, me too.
I am driving up my carbs for that day.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's making sure that you're getting the good fats, good proteins, and then a lot of amazing vegetables.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That will also help with the gut, right?
Right. I was just going to say, which is a great segue into the gut and feeding that good bacteria. So, yeah, I mean, I did this recently with my parents, is just really looking at those 4 things. Like, okay, are we doing good? And then fasting, we threw some fasting in. That really, I just took breakfast away from them, and I said, hey, you know what? You're going to push your breakfast back. We're just going to push it back an hour. And I'll tell you, between getting off the grains, pushing their breakfast back, they both were like, oh my God, I'm losing weight. I have so much energy. I'm like, yeah. And my dad's 82. So to be able to do that at 82 is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So
simple things that people can do. It's not even going out and buying tons of supplements, just start with the diet.
Yeah.
Because that has to be done. I tell people all the time, you can't get well if you don't change your diet.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Okay, now let's say you're the 30 and 40-year-old woman who is like forgetting things all the time. What I know, same rules apply. It's a little different because you can be, in my opinion, a little more aggressive. You have more control because it's you. You're not, like I'll be honest, I was a little worried how much detoxing I wanted to put my 78-year-old mom through. Whereas I have no problem detoxing the heck out of myself because I can control it more. So what steps would you take for that? Like what would be, very similar strategies apply, but the steps may look a little different. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think, again, diet first, right? Getting rid of the grains, increasing the fats, doing the fasting. So maybe it's a bit more aggressive with the fasting, starting with the intermittent, getting rid of snacks, really controlling the blood sugar. Really similar things we've talked about for some of our other podcasts, like with hormonal health, because there's that layer of hormones too when it comes to the memory at that age. So focusing on that, and then, as we're doing that, start implementing some 24-hour fasts, and then working our way up to that block fast.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that, teaching detoxification and getting into what is causing that toxic load. Is it heavy metals? Is it from our food? Is it, our environment, the stuff you're putting on your body every single day? So really educating around all that stuff.
The one thing I would probably add to that is testing. I would add
I was thinking the same
a
thing.
bunch of different tests to find out, okay, where are the triggers for you that we can address? So, I would probably do a toxic urine challenge depending on how the questionnaire was filled out. I absolutely 100% would run either a Dutch test or a saliva test to see the pituitary function, because then you can correlate that with adrenal health and cholesterol and hormones and relate it to thyroid. So you can really start putting together all of the pieces of the puzzle and seeing, is it hormonal? Is it toxic? Is it stress related? Is it food related? And that's what I would do. So that approach, I would be a little more specific, I guess, for the individual that is starting to experience it at the age of 40, because it's not okay. It's not normal. And if you don't do something about it, it's going to get worse. Just, it will.
And really working on the patterns, right? Because like we were saying, at 80, it's really hard to change the habit, to change the pattern, but trying to look at, okay, what are the underlying patterns that are allowing you to live the lifestyle that you're living today? And the stress component. Because just looking back at my nanny too, when her dementia kicked in, it was right after my grandfather passed away.
Oh, mine too.
The moment the funeral was over, all of a sudden she was a changed woman.
Wow.
So I think there's a huge stress component when there's this buildup of stress from all these years. I think we hit a point where enough is enough. The tools aren't there to deal with it. And then there's a huge shift in the mind and in the brain. So just really working on that aspect too. And I hope people listening to this are starting to figure out a theme.
Yes, there's a pattern.
Right?
With everything that we talk about.
Right? Right.
Foundational pattern.
Yeah. But that's what's so but that's what's so cool. I mean, this is why I know when you guys do the same thing when you work with patients, you're like, we're going to teach you a lifestyle. This is not like a fancy, let me just give you this pill and all of a sudden you'll be better. This is like, once you catch on to the lifestyle, oh my God, then it just becomes effortless. It really becomes quite easy to apply. But the problem is we're so taught one pill, one problem, and we just keep searching. Oh, if I don't want a synthetic pill, I'll go to an alternative doctor and get a natural pill. Yep. But it's the same broken paradigm. You have to look at what's your lifestyle. So if you're 40 and losing your memory, then you really need to look at creating a new lifestyle for yourself. And it does include all the things we're talking about. And which is hard. I get it. I get that's where it can be a little bit like, whoa, how do I do that?
Well, I think why it's hard too. So it breaks my heart because I was just told at an event I did that a mother-daughter came, and the daughter goes, it was a thyroid event that I was explaining thyroid and function, and she goes, well, mine's not that bad. I'm not 40. She was talking about a 43-year-old patient that came in, and I'm only in my 20s. And her mom was just like, you're not listening. Like, this isn't going to get better. And she's like, well, I'm not that bad.
Yeah.
So for anybody that's listening, it's not okay at any age.
Right.
You got to figure out what is going on. It's just because it's more common now doesn't mean it's normal.
Right.
It does not mean it's normal. Yeah. And it means that there's an underlying broken pattern or issue or dysfunction. And if you address it, it will go away.
And our world is different now. So maybe a generation before it started at 40, but now maybe starting at 20.
Oh, great point.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can't really look at our grandparents or parents anymore either, because everything is starting at such a younger age.
So much younger. Yeah. And I think you actually, as I was listening to you talk, Caitlin, I was thinking, one thing we do as women, I'm sure you guys have experienced this, is when we get together, we're like, oh my God, how are your hormones? And then you're like, oh, they're horrible. Or how's your memory? Oh, it's horrible.
And then you meet each other at that level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. And then it's something to talk about, right?
right. And then it's just, and we normalize it.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally minimize. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what we have to shift. Like you have to be okay to stand
Yes.
out and say, hey, you know what? I'm actually not eating grains. I actually
Yeah.
am fasting. And you know, so then you can plant the seed for that group instead of wanting everyone to like be at that lower level of like,
Right.
you know, minimizing all our symptoms.
Oh, I'm the crazy
Right.
one in my group of friends, and I'm okay with that. We're still great friends.
Oh, yeah.
But they honestly think that I'm somewhat nuts when they asked me, you know, how do you have a six pack? Like, what workout do you do? And I'm like, no, 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 no. It's not just the workout. It's what I eat, how I eat, you know, the frequency, and talked about fasting. And one of my six girlfriends goes, can you give me some more information on that? I can't drop this baby weight. And
Yeah.
so she started implementing it. She dropped 10 pounds in 3 weeks and goes, holy crap, this works. And I was
Yeah.
like, uh-huh.
Right.
And then all the other girlfriends are like, what'd you do? How'd you?
Right.
Well, remember when Caitlin said this is what she did? That's what I did. And they're like, oh, you mean
She's not
she
crazy.
actually knows what she's talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, we really, I think as women, we should support each other in being the best that we can possibly be and not bitch about the things that take us away from our best selves. Like,
And
I mean, I think that's how, go ahead.
I was just going to say that also ties into our caretaking, right? So
Yeah.
going back to the topic of taking care of the elderly or our parents that maybe have dementia or Alzheimer's, I think there's that we can get almost attached to that role.
Yeah.
And when we have others around us that are doing the same, it's the same thing. Then they're getting together and talking about how hard it is and all these extra things we have to do, how it's affecting our relationship, but not being able to take action upon it to change that.
Yeah.
So that they don't have to be in that state. I think that's also a conversation that we have to shift so that we're elevating each
Yeah.
other instead of meeting each other again at that same place.
So let's talk about like what a normal 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old brain should function like. So you should not drive home and like not know your direction in the way that you're going, or lose all of a sudden not realize what direction you're heading in. You shouldn't walk into a room and wonder why you walked into the room. You shouldn't forget names and memory and like what you did last week or what you did 20 years ago. Like all of that is not normal
You
at
should
any
read
age.
a paragraph 5 times to try and remember what you read, because I went through that.
Yep, guilty.
You know,
Yeah.
all of those things not normal.
Not normal. So I think that's really important for people to know that that's not a part of the normal aging process. And that if that is you, that can be the beginning of dementia and Alzheimer's at that. And that's why they're calling it pre-dementia now. Everything's got a pre because it's happening at such an earlier age.
Well, and it can also be not just memory, but your mood, right? So if you're more agitated and things that wouldn't normally bother you, like, oh, you drop a pen on the floor and you get super angry with yourself or the situation, or somebody uses their signal to change lanes in front of you and you're just like, how dare they come in my lane, you know?
Right.
Those are also the beginning signs of, you know, changes happening in your brain that aren't for the better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your stress reaction, how you handle stress, I think. I hear that from patients a lot, like I'm just more irritable. That's usually my sign that we've got some heavy metals. When people are like, I'm just short fused, I'm irritable. When I hear that in a consultation, I'm usually thinking heavy metals is one of the indicators.
Hormones.
Yeah.
Hormones too. Yeah, for sure.
And then gut plays into it, and cholesterol, and
yeah. Here we go.
Right.
Foundation.
Right. back to the foundation.
Back to the basics.
Yeah. So, and then, you know, I think Dr. Caitlin, you resonate with this as well. As like, I think the chiropractic adjustment, they've done studies where they show it improves cerebral spinal fluid to the brain. And the whole point of the cerebral spinal fluid is to wash the brain out of toxins and bring it down and get it out of your body. So, does Kundalini do the same thing?
Yes. Yes.
It improves CSF flow?
It does. Spinal flex. cat cow, or anything where you're
Oh,
resting and flexing the spine, you're increasing that flow because you're opening and closing in between the.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And and things like sleep, I think it's so cool how when we go horizontal and we sleep, the ventricles of our brain shrink so that the cerebral spinal fluid can get up there and wash it out.
Maybe
Those
get that
things are
when my
important.
kids go to college.
What'd you say?
Maybe I'll get that part when my kids go to college.
She'll get sleep.
Yeah, actually you do. It's before they go to college. Because once they go to college, remember, you're so stressed out you can't sleep anymore. Did you not hear? Look at me.
I
Did you not hear about my panic attack at 2 in the morning?
Yeah.
No, Sonia, it's coming. It's like when they're in middle school, there's like a sweet spot where they're not crawling in your bed anymore,
Nice.
and you actually are sleeping.
Yeah, and half
There's-
your body's been off the bed. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So don't worry, it's coming.
Stick with dogs, guys. This whole kid.
You're scaring her, Mindy.
Honestly, I'll just be that really
Yeah.
cool aunt, and I'll take kids for the weekend, and then be like, okay,
Yeah, which
and then I'll go back to my sleep.
She already knows how to get
It's
to.
one option.
I do. Yep.
It's definitely an option, Dr. Caitlin. It is not. It is not that having kids is not the easy path. Let's just put it that way.
I'm noticing that.
It's one of those jobs that's so rewarding. It's so rewarding, and it's also the hardest thing you'll ever do. So on every day, almost.
I've started to notice that this summer. I've spent almost my whole summer with kids all on the weekends for like 4 days straight or like 2 weeks straight kind of thing. And it's a ton of fun and I love it. But I'm just like, it's always work and stress, which is going to play into the hormone and the sleep and, everything that we're talking about.
All you need to carry around with you are sausages and cheese. And
well, for some kids.
It's all about the snacks, Caitlin. That's it. You just gotta have the snacks and you'll be fine.
Her youngest now loves me because I'm now known as the Wasage.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, there you go. That's awesome. So let's sum it up so that people can have a checklist. I think if you have an aging parent, I love how you started this with let's change the fat. I would go in and change all the bad oils. I would and put all the good ones in. I would have them increase their good fat. What would you do next? So if we change the fat for an aging parent, next would be
working on the gut.
Take out grains.
Gut. Okay, and then blood sugar. I know they're equal, right? So then you could do something as simple as restore, and then give them some sauerkraut, give them some probiotics, and then you could take the grains out. That's awesome. Get them off their. Oh my God, the ice cream. My dad's addicted to ice cream, and so now he sits and eats it, and then he looks at me. It's like he stops and he's like, am I not supposed to eat this? I'm like, yeah.
Well,
So yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. You're so sensible. Okay, so take the grains out and then detoxify.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the order you guys would do it in?
Yeah, absolutely. And introducing the fasting in there too. Yeah.
And just push their breakfast back a little bit and then see how they do. I was really surprised with my parents how easy that was for them, especially if they're upping the good fat. It becomes much easier to do that. So
I tell patients just close your eating window. So people understand that. That's you only eat 8 hours a day, so you pick what time your 8 hours start, and then 8 hours later you're done eating. So that's it.
It's awesome. Right? Yeah, it's more simple than people would think.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and then if you're younger, same rules apply.
Yep.
Get yourself tested and do some aggressive detoxing. Is that kind of the synopsis with that?
Yeah, and be patient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have to be patient with detox. Detox doesn't happen overnight. And please, 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 if you're going to do heavy metal detox, do not use cilantro or chlorella.
Yeah. I actually think anybody who does heavy metal detoxing needs to be coached. I mean, that's something you need to have somebody walk you through. I don't. Do you guys feel the same? I just don't see. It's not always an easy thing.
Everybody always has some kind of symptom. Like one of my really good friends, we won't mention names. She broke out in some sores from the heavy metal detox, and she goes, what is this? I've never had this before. And I said, well, your body's getting rid of all sorts of stuff, and one of the ways is via the skin, so you might get little sores. And if you don't know who to talk to and how to change things, you could really freak out about it.
Mm-hmm.
But she was freaking out about it, like, oh my God, do I have herpes now? No, your body's detoxing, getting rid of stuff. So it's really important.
Yeah, and most people are not just detoxing one thing. They're detoxing lots of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, awesome. Okay. Well, I hope that's helpful for people. I think that
And
it
lastly,
is. Yeah, go for it.
Bring in that community aspect again, and those of you that are taking care of your elderly parents, reach out, talk about it, get solutions,
Get help,
and get support.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I've watched a lot of people go through that process with the elderly parent, and family feuds are tough. Getting people to make changes is tough. I'm, like I said, I'm at the beginning stages of it with my parents, and it's hard. It's a hard one, but that's why for me, I like having checklists, like what can I control? What can I do? And then I love what you said, Dr. Sonia. And then you got to step back and you got to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think I take better care of myself now that I have to go through that with my parents on a pretty regular basis. I'm more protective of my self-care than ever before, because it is such a draining experience.
Mm-hmm.
So
if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of anybody.
No.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So reach out. We're on, as Dr. Caitlin always says, we're on the Facebook group. Ask questions, subscribe to our channel, get the more community. I think that's one thing I love about social media more than anything right now is the community aspect and the support you can get from strangers if you're in the right groups. So we're here for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. As always, I love chatting with you guys.
Yeah. Take care.
And let us know if you found this helpful. Keep us posted. Bye.